Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So I do apologize for the completely horrible audio and video quality. I'm literally just recording this on my laptop. I'm sorry, I'm not monetized. My channel's not part of the partners program. I don't do this for money. Dang, my phone records better than this. But anyway, maybe I'll do this on my phone next time. Gosh. Anyway, today I'd like to talk to you about a topic that is a little bit, it's probably not very niche. Have any of you ever heard of the SCP Foundation? Chances are, if you clicked on this video based on the title that I'm gonna put onto the video, you've probably heard of the SCP Foundation because you've probably also heard of today's topic. Today's topic is, of course, Detective Void. You probably saw that in the title. And if you know who he is, great. That's cool. If you don't know who he is, let me just briefly run down the SCP Foundation first before I go into him. The SCP Foundation is a fictional organization that seeks to contain things that don't fit within our concept of reality. So, like, something that can just moot telekinesis, if you have weird powers, the SCP Foundation will hunt you down and find you, I guess, right? Well, anyway, okay, they're not evil. They probably will hunt you down and find you for the good of humanity. Anyway, Detective Void, then, is one of these YouTubers that's out there that makes a bunch of videos, and a lot of his content is focused on the SCP Foundation and specific anomalies in general. There's a lot of YouTube channels that do this. Detective Void's one. Another one is SCP Explained, Dr. Bob, The Rubber. There's a couple others. There's a bunch more. But today we're going to talk about Detective Void specifically, because he has a lot of really interesting lore that comes out. And now, me being the neck-bearded nerd that I am, I wanted to go ahead and take a look at some of this. And if you don't like a nerd ranting about something that has a lot of deep backstory and lore, you might not like this video, and you might not like my channel in general. I don't know if this is going to be the format of all my videos. It probably won't. I'll probably do a hit piece on Mr. Girl next video. In fact, that is probably going to be the next video. Anyway, today we're not doing a hit piece. We're doing a deep dive into the lore of Detective Void's channel. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Now, the first video that I want to talk to you about of Detective Void's that's kind of relevant to this video is a Q&A video that he put out, which is basically just he sat down and he looked at a bunch of questions that his fans had asked him and he answered them. Pretty cool, right? Engaging with his community, that's always nice. And so anyway, he did that, but he also introduced his sister in this video, which, before we continue, I want to say I am not talking about IRL at all. I'm not saying anything about him or his family IRL. I am talking about the lore within his content. I am not talking about him IRL. Don't think that I'm making some weird conspiracy theory about him IRL. No, that's not what the video is about. The video is about his lore, not the real person. Anyway, he introduces his sister within the lore and everything, and also we get another good look at his diminutive employees who harass him a lot. They're probably just in there for comic relief, but hey, maybe they are part of the lore and I'm just missing something. I would hate that, right? Well, anyway, there's those guys, there's his sister, which is kind of, and she shows up in one or two SCP specific videos too, as like an extra, which adds a little cool, it's a cool little Easter egg, right? Well, anyway, or a callback, I guess, Easter egg callback, however you want to say that. But anyway, he also introduces the fact that his mask is sentient in this video. And when I say sentient, I mean it's a being that, you know, it has the mental capacity of like a human. It has, I guess, a soul, you might say. But for some reason, this Q&A video, as far as I know to this day, has been the only video in which the mask has ever directly talked to the viewers. So that was the only time we ever got the mask talking to us. So you think, so for somebody like me, that's kind of a gold mine, because hey, the mask is sentient and it's talking to us now. Like it's not Detective Void talking to us anymore. That's the mask. So anyway, the mask goes on to explain that there are other versions of Detective Void in other universes, and it's this whole big thing, right? And you know what? That's cool. He's trying to do multiverse stuff, which multiverse stuff is very hard to pull off. So good on him for trying. I hope he doesn't accidentally wreck himself with it in the future, because it's a very cool concept. It just has the potential to be a train wreck, unfortunately. But anyway, there's this whole multiverse thing, and the next video I want to bring your attention to is his, I guess, a music video that he did called One Against a Million. Now remember that title too. I'll talk about that in a minute. But in One Against a Million, we see a couple of things happen. One of the things I want to talk about from One Against a Million was part of the lyrics of like the actual song made a lot of allusions to Detective Void wanting to leave stuff behind, go away, leave the Earth, leave this galaxy, actually. So he wants to get out of Dodge. He wants to leave, right? Okay. Good on him. I don't want to live on this planet either, buddy. See, how do I put this? I don't want to live on this planet anymore either. Yeah, because this world's crazy. But anyway, I don't think that's the reason he wants to leave. We'll talk about that in a minute. So he wants to leave. Then also there's the little tidbit we saw that was like the first time you ever saw a little bit of his face. He's doing the thing where he does little teases, or well, I shouldn't say that. That sounds weird. But he'll have part of his face covered or whatever, because like his whole spiel is he never really shows us his face in most of his videos, but then every once in a while you'll get in the music videos, every once in a while you'll get half of it, you know, or whatever. And so at the end of One Against a Million is one scene where that happens. The thing I want to draw your attention to, though, in that clip is the fact that his eyes are glowing in that clip despite the mask being across the room. So, you know what that means, right? That means that the mask isn't the thing that has glowing eyes. Detective Void is the thing that has glowing eyes. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? Oh man, I hate this recording on a laptop. I'm going to record on my phone next time because I see all kinds of grainy nonsense. But anyway, there's all that going on, and excuse me, he does. This might be a slightly long video, and I do not blame you for not watching all of it, but please try. I'm sorry. Anyway, there's One Against a Million, and he wants to leave. What if he's not human? Now, I'm going to have to, unfortunately, take the what if he's not human back, but I would like to point out that that was one theory that I had before I watched his most recent music video, Take It Easy. Although, technically, the what if he isn't human is still slightly relevant, because, well, we'll get into that later. Anyway, so his eyes are still glowing without the mask on. So Detective Void's eyes or what's glowing, not the mask's eyes. He wants to leave, and when I say leave, I mean leave the galaxy, like go away. Go to a different planet. And another thing I want to point out in the Q&A video is that his sister in lore has come and kind of moved in with him. Where are his parents in lore? Are they gone? Did the SCP Foundation do something to them? Now that, I think, is what's going on. I think the SCP Foundation did something to his parents. Maybe they were D-class. Maybe D-Void is actually stands for like a weird, obscure, subset of D-class that existed at one point, and that was like his dad's shirt. It's also got bloodstains on it, so something happened to that shirt at some point. Or maybe D-Void is just literally Detective Void. That's probably the case. It's probably the case. But what if his parents were D-class? It's quite possible. And we all know that the SCP Foundation isn't too keen on being very nice to D-Class. Unless maybe they're sending the D-Class into SCP-999's containment chamber for some experimentation. Or 9999. Whichever one the little, like, the one that's, like, nicknamed the Tickle Monster or whatever. Whichever one that is, that's the one SCP that, like, if you're a D-Class and you get sent in, you kind of, like, wipe the sweat off your brow, like, oh, good grief, thank goodness, Because anything else in there, oh, man, you'd be... Anyway, but, hey, anyway, that's the whole thing with D-Class. They're not treated very well. But anyway, what if his parents were D-Class, and they got killed in some very obscure, fate worse than death type way? Because there's a lot of different anomalies that could have done that. A lot of different ones that the SCP Foundation contains. And the reason I'm theorizing this is because why else would Detective Void be actively kind of going against the Foundation? It's often stated in the lore that the SCP Foundation is trying to find Detective Void, stop him, suppress what he's doing. He's going against them. He's actively going against them. Now, maybe this is just because he wants the whole freedom of information. Sorry, I can't talk. Maybe he just wants freedom of... I can't say that quickly. Maybe he... Why can't I say it? I'm sorry, folks. Maybe he just wants freedom of information. That's possible. Or maybe he has a personal vendetta against the Foundation. That's also possible. And the reason I think it's weird that his parents aren't there when his sister is because why did his sister choose to move in with him within lore? Well, I think it's because safety in numbers, she's also trying to hide from the Foundation. Now, the reason she's also trying to hide from... I can't talk anymore. I'm sorry. Anyway, the reason she's also trying to hide from the Foundation, if I can say it. Anyway, the reason she is also trying to hide from the Foundation is because the SCP Foundation would probably just, capture her to get to Void somehow, right? That would make sense. So she moved in with him. That way they can both kind of hide, and that way, it's less of a chance of if one of them gets found, and then they can take the other one. But now they'll just both get found. But anyway, excuse me. It's a smart move, but if that were the case, why isn't all his family doing this? Because if the rest of his family was also alive, it would make sense that the Foundation would just take them too, if they're not hiding with him. So his parents obviously aren't hiding out with him, so something's up with them. They are either they either work for the Foundation themselves, or maybe they were D-Class. Or maybe they weren't D-Class, maybe the Foundation killed them somehow, wrongfully. you know, because the Foundation does a bunch of stuff that makes the ethics committee cringe, you know. So stuff happens. Stuff happens. So maybe his parents got killed by the Foundation for whatever, and now he has a vendetta against them, and he's trying to kind of expose all these SCPs. That's actually similar to what the Serpent's Hand does. The Serpent's Hand goes and completely, you know, they just want all this freedom of information. Now, this might make you theorize, oh, well, maybe Detective Void is part of the Serpent's Hand. I personally don't think that's the case. I think he's got some he's his own thing. You know, he's his own little niche thing. He's got some personal vendetta against the Foundation, or maybe he just wants freedom of information for like a different reason than the Serpent's Hand wants it. Well, anyway, the whole thing with that is, I also don't think that he's human. Detective Void is. Now, he's gone on record multiple times saying, you know, I'm not an anomaly, my mask is not an anomaly. Okay, so he's not an SCP. The mask is also not an SCP. That doesn't mean that he's human. I mean, we've already seen that the mask is sentient, despite not being an SCP. So the mask must just be some extraterrestrial alien. Because that would both not be an SCP, and it would be able to do the things that you see it do. So there's, that contrast, I don't like that. Anyway, there's all that going on, and so the mask is obviously some kind of alien. What if Detective Void is as well? And the reason I think this is because that one little clip I told you about, where, it's so weird, his eyes are glowing. But the mask is across the room. Why are his eyes glowing and not the mask's, if he is completely human? Now, theoretically, that could be because he's just worn the mask for so long that it has affected him in some way, and so now his eyes glow from time to time. And now the reason I say from time to time is because his more recent video, Take It Easy, has a scene where you get a more clear view of his eyes without the mask on, and at this point they're not glowing. They just look normal. I think they were like green or something. I don't even know. But either way, whatever color they weren't glowing, I'll tell you that much. And so his eyes only glow sometimes with the mask off. It seems a little weird to me. I don't think that's completely human. Or maybe he is human and the mask has affected him in some way. I have to kind of throw out my, he's not human theory after the Take It Easy, because, I don't think he's not human. I think he's human. Especially with the whole parents thing. What I do think is going on, and the reason I think he wants to leave the galaxy, is because the mask... Actually, no, hang on. No, this makes no sense whatsoever. Because he doesn't know that the mask is sentient within his lore. Now, the reason I say that is because during the Q&A clip, the mask sort of does this little thing where he kind of takes over to talk to us, right? And he tells us about all these multiverse possibilities and everything. One of the versions of Detective Void works for the Foundation, and the mask mentions that Detective Void, or as he called him in the video, Simon... I'm guessing that we're just supposed to think that that's his name. Whatever it may be, right? It's a rare. It's a kind of an obscure name. It's also mine. I don't meet very many people with that name. But anyway, it's just one of those little weird things about him. I don't think it has any connotation with the lore. I think that's just something that happened. Anyway, the mask goes on to tell us that in one of the universes, Detective Void works for the Foundation, and he would be very cross if he found that out. This means that Detective Void does not know all the stuff that the mask does. Now, why is that? It has to be, and it doesn't seem like Detective Void knows that the mask is sentient at all. I don't think he does. I think he's completely oblivious to the fact that the mask is sentient. I don't know why he started wearing it, but I think that for some reason it's been affecting his mind in some way, where it has been kind of feeding him information about like its home planet, because it wants him to help it get back to its home planet. That's a possibility, right? Or maybe he does know it's sentient, and it has asked him to cooperate and get back to his planet, or something like that. Or maybe he's also an alien and he wants to go home. That's a possibility. Now, these are all just theories of mine about his lore. He's obviously gone on record and says he's not an SCP. His mask is not an SCP either. But that doesn't mean that they're not aliens. Doesn't mean that they're not aliens at all. Aliens are not necessarily SCPs. Not necessarily. Some SCPs are aliens, but not every alien is an SCP. Excuse me. Anyway, let's see, what else did I want to talk about? You know what, I think that was it. And barely over 20 minutes, so not too horribly long, not a giant waste of your time. Kind of a waste of your time, though. Sorry about the time I did waste. Anyway, if you did like this video, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe for more. And like I said earlier, my next video, I'm gonna just go ahead and do. You know what? No, I'll talk to you about next video in the next video. How about that? I'm sorry for these weird, infrequent uploads too. But anyway, have a nice day, everyone. And this has been Dark Pit 37.